Josh, what's your cocktail?
Hello, Crossland.
Oh, hi.
Today
Is this
we'll
we're speed
be
racing it? Oh, sorry.
sampling
Hang
a
on.
lovely, um, a lovely little summer drink.
Ooh,
Refreshing, citrusy,
summer,
bright, sunny, light.
tasty,
We're gonna be having
resplendent.
a pour from a larger batch. That is a 750 milliliter, a classic wine bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. Choose your
Mm.
Blanc, but drier the better. Half a cup of your choice brandy. You really don't have to go crazy here. A cheap brandy will do. Half a cup of lemonade for myself. It's the Trader Joe's fresh squeezed unpasteurized lemonade.
Mm.
You're going to want half an orange sliced in that batch. You're also going to want half a lemon sliced in that batch. Now, this is optional. I went for the skinny version because I'm trying to be hot. I got beach days coming up. I live in San Diego. But if you want to add, like maybe 1/4 cup of simple syrup, it's very sweet, but it would be pretty tasty. But I didn't do that. Whenever you do make that, you're going to want to refrigerate it for a couple hours. And then you're going to want to pour it into a glass over ice with a couple of orange slices and lemon slices. Top it with soda water of your choice, in my case, also from Trader Joe's, and elderflower and lemon soda water. That's right, everybody. This summer drink, we are drinking the Kharn Sangria.
I'm just gonna add an H to that just for the spelling, but that's cool.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. I was like, I gotta make a Kharn Sangria.
Oh, that's so good. How the fuck didn't I think of that? It's literally genius.
The fact that whenever I was like describing a white wine summer sangria, I was like, he's gonna figure it out.
I didn't the whole
pun.
time. I didn't. That was incredible. Incredible little bit.
The second he thinks the word sangria, he's gonna know it's Sagara.
No, that was good. That was well done. I love it. Tastes good, I'm sure.
It's just fucking delightful. Yeah.
Easy,
and I can go get like
delightful.
another pour because it's like half the ABV of what a normal cocktail would be. You know?
Right. Right. Easy peasy. What was your first half beer? Anything?
Oh yeah, my first half beer is the same as my second half beer if I get one.
Right.
It is a limited release by Pizza Port, one of my favorite local breweries here in San Diego. It's called the Next Horizon IPA. It's this beautiful little sea monster and waves, and yeah, it's very pretty. It's a classic IPA. We're rocking Citra Cryo, Citra Hyper Boost, Moteca, and Moteca Hop Keef.
Ooh.
Hops.
Fuck.
So heavily hopped, very old school IPA, like very kind of bright, piney with a little bit of malt. Very clear when poured out into a glass. It's not a hazy at all. Just a traditional ass old school IPA, and it's really good.
Nice. I was heavily debating doing another KCBC beer, but I held off. I'm going to save it for next week. So it's a new one. It's exciting. So. And the can art is so nice. So,
well, now I need to know what beer you are drinking, but first I have to hear about your cocktail.
My cocktail's pretty straightforward. I say it's pretty straightforward. I haven't tried it actually. It's a spin on my favorite cocktail, to be clear. But I need to try it to make sure that it's decent so that I can make a recommendation. Okay. That's pretty good.
What is your favorite cocktail?
My favorite cocktail is the improved whiskey cocktail.
Okay, I was going to say.
It's a very subtle. Yeah.
The improved whiskey cocktail is somewhere between an old fashioned and a Sazerac, you know? And
basically, yes.
Because the Sazerac was basically the original whiskey cocktail. And that, well, not exactly the Sazerac now, but it was pretty much that.
Yeah.
It was just whiskey and bitters.
Yeah.
No ice.
And the improved whiskey was sort of like the blending of the Sazerac that made it less of a Sazerac and more of like the modern. It was like the beginning of like modern cocktails in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it was more about like mixture and ratios than like previous.
One of my favorite fun facts from bartending is just that whenever you would go to an establishment in the before times, you would order a cocktail and it would just be whatever their cocktail was.
Right.
So you'd be like, can I get a whiskey cocktail? And be whatever like their version of that was. But it was usually some combination of whiskey, water, and bitters. Maybe fruit, maybe not. So like whenever you get to the improved whiskey cocktail, that's where you start kind of standardizing across the industry. And it's the beginning of modern bartending during or very, very post-prohibition. So.
Yeah. That said, I wanted to do a spin on it. Because like it didn't have a proper rye, so it was like I was interested in doing something that was a little bit different. I think that I would change this already just based on what I've tasted. I'm comparing this to perfection, so it's important to like. I was trying something. It didn't quite work as well as I wanted to. It's still tasty though, and I think more people would like this than would like an improved whiskey cocktail because there's an acquired taste for a lot of people. So
yeah,
I'm calling this the improved diabolic whiskey cocktail. In particular because we're following an Imperial soldier. He also has like the capering devil, everything else. It's fun. So 2 ounces of scotch to begin with, which is a change. I use Monkey Shoulder blended scotch,
nice.
Which is a solid, blend scotch to use for cocktails.
Which would also be interesting in that because that's like a very creamy, smooth scotch.
Yeah, exactly. It works perfectly. I did actually grab originally my bottle of Glenlivet 12, and it was like,
oh, that would have been really interesting.
No, I was like, no. I stared at it for a second, and I was like, do I want 2 ounces? No. that was my whole internal debate. I was like, I don't know if this is good. Now I would consider it. Now that I kind of like mostly like this, I would change that out in one other thing. 1/4 ounce maraschino liqueur, which is sort of the standard. This is where generally you do a bar spoon of absinthe, but I'd swap that out for a bar spoon of green chartreuse for something that was going to be a little bit more herbal, not as cutting because I wanted to get those scotchy notes out. It turns out that you do want the absinthe, and so I would fully swap that. But I'll explain more of that in a second here. 1/4 ounce of simple syrup. I used lavender simple syrup, which is just a nice subtle touch. Honestly, pretty great. I think that actually does the trick for what I wanted from the green chartreuse without being overly bitter. So I wouldn't change the lavender simple syrup, but I would change the green chartreuse out.
I would
2
be
dashes
so
patience,
curious
2 Angostura,
if it was
spritz of absinthe.
Sorry.
No, that's it.
I get you're doing more like actual cocktailing, which I get excited about, and I want to like yap about it. I'd be so curious if you kept the green chartreuse and you switched out the lavender simple syrup for a mint simple. But
mint's not a bad idea.
Honestly,
like,
it's a weird call. It'll be like love or hate, but
even just fresh mint. And honestly, I'm also missing a lemon peel, right? Which is like a big deal.
Yeah, of course.
Because that like fresh lemon shit. Like really helps it. But fresh mint might actually also be a different solution that would like brighten this in that direction.
Green sharp with the spritz of absinthe would bring like a really kind of garden-y aspect.
Well, it does. And so I think you're right on the mint level as opposed to like kind of lavender's kind of doubling down on that. That said, I thought that I had regular simple syrup. I didn't. So it was like, okay, do I go grenadine? Do I go? And I was like, lavender's closest. So,
whenever I went to make my, whenever I was like conceptualizing my cocktail and I went the easy route because I had an unopened bottle of wine and I was like, I know what I'm going to do. But I had this moment where I was holding a bottle of just regular plain simple syrup that I made recently in a bottle of eel sauce, which is basically just simple syrup made with soy sauce and mirin. I was like, could I? What could I do? I haven't been brave enough. I have not been brave enough to make an eel sauce,
like a gin eel sauce cocktail, or like a tequila eel sauce. Ooh, dude,
with like a salmon garnish,
like a nigiri garnish.
Oh my god! Sign me the fuck up.
That sounds incredible. I dipped my cocktail in that.
Yeah, I might have to make. We might have to collectively conceptualize how to make like a sushi cocktail.
I had a miso cocktail this weekend.
Oh shit.
Oh my fucking god.
Miso cocktails are great. I could do a miso cocktail and I could do like a fat wash.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then use that. Oh my god.
Eel sauce with a fat wash?
Eel sauce with a fat wash and a miso cocktail. Probably gin based. But like
I would do
maybe
gin.
Whiskey. Maybe Japanese whiskey. Maybe some toki.
Yeah, like a soft whiskey. Yeah.
We're gonna have to see what happens.
That's
here.
a cook. That's a cook, my friend.
That's for Musashi. Yeah.
Now we're cooking. We're gonna do some crazy shit for Musashi. We haven't talked about this yet. I don't think.
Cook for Musashi. Oh yeah, shit. Well,
I mean, it's worth remarking upon for those of you, and I'm do beating heart want to put out a schedule of all the bonus books that we want to cover and things like that in the near future. But we will be covering Musashi because it's a patron sponsored episode. I think I mentioned this at the end of the first episode in which it was sponsored.
They really like us. Yes.
But the goal is by the end of May. It's a big, thick book. Please read it ahead of time. It should be very good. I'm very excited.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm going to commit harikari on camera.
Woo, that's a yikes for everyone, bud. To follow, that was the most Minnesotan I've ever sounded on this podcast.
There's one of them yikeses.
Yikes, buddy. The beer that I'm having, which is an appropriately Skull class from Burial, which is my favorite brewery in Nashville, is from Foothills, which is in Winston-Salem. Yes.
Salem Witch Trials. Got it.
Yeah, no, it's in North Carolina. This is called, and I got it in a crowler for the record. The Dead and Deed and Buried. Dead, but deed buried. Yeah, but buried with like.
It sounds like Swedish Chef.
Right, exactly. But it's a sweet. It's an imperial. It's a 10% beer, 10.6. Imperial stout, but it is so like nice and fruity. In addition to being like honey as like the back sweetener, as opposed to like you get kind of like a motor oily finish sometimes in like Imperials. So this is like honey and berries as like the core of it, and then like went the other direction, and it is perfect. My local bartender pitched me on it, and he was like, "I think that this is specifically for you," and I was like, "Okay," and I tried it, and I was like, yeah, you're right. This is it. And I bought one on the spot. And it may have been $22, but I don't fucking care. And
good beer's good beer, baby.
This is so good. So I've been really enjoying it over the course of this podcast.
Which, not shout out, but just mild comment to, there was a question about San Diego tacos and beer.
Oh, yeah.
And I may have sent too much.
It's a longtime listener, John Pocken, who gave us I think a solid thank you back after seeing a massive list that took 4 screenshots to convey over Instagram.
So there's 2 little stars on there. Those are like the definitely go here's, and then everything else is just you want to have it. The problem with San Diego, there are a billion fucking good restaurants and there's a billion good breweries. So a list
now we've got a list. Yeah.
A list of 50 is actually really narrowing it down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It might be worth throwing up on the story and then putting into a little collection of like San Diego Rex.
Oh, I'm gonna get fucking dragged if a local sees that.
Okay, we will put it there.
The taco stand, really, you white bitch? And I'm like, it's good. It is good.
I'm from Northern California. Okay, give me a break.
I'm not from Northern California. I'm from Central California.
Yeah,
and everybody from Southern California says, oh, Northern California. And if I say where I'm from to anybody from Northern California, they're like, oh, Southern California. I'm like, there is a middle, you fucks.
You're not from Fresno.
I am from Fresno.
Fresno.
That is where I'm from.
Do you really? Would you? Hang on.
Look
I have to make my own call.
There's a spot on a freeway.
Yeah, we obviously
Fresno.
discussed this for reasons that we've discussed off air. Okay.
It is dead center.
It's north
left,
central.
right, up, down.
But it's north.
Dead center, left, right, up, down.
It's way more north than it is south, though.
Nope. It is the exact center of the state.
If you squished the state with the latitude lines, it's not the dead center of the state, dude. That extends so much further.
So,
are you saying where the cities are? Like where people consider the population
to be?
The dead center
of the state. It is a 6.5 hour drive from Fresno to San Diego. It is which is the southern border. It is a 6.5 drive from Fresno to the Washington.
Yeah, but that's like LA, man. I'm just kidding. I could not. I do not know California that well, but like looking at it here, I'm like,
there's a spot where like geographically they planted a pine tree and a palm tree next to each other because it represented the exact center of the state. Okay, and that is in Fresno.
Fair enough.
I know whenever you look at the map, it feels a little weird, but also I'm sure we all know. The map is not like actually like scale accurate.
Well, that's what I was saying is like it almost seems more south if you look at the map, but I'm sure it's more north because of the way that longitude latitude bends.
Exactly.
But what you're suggesting to me is that I'm wrong in both of my assumptions.
I'm gonna do a little research here real quick.
Yeah.
I'm curious actually. So
Because it seems so much further away from the north,
Fresno,
in theory,
California.
but again, the bend.
We're looking at.
I'm really not trying to like hard debate this either. I'm just I
no.
believe you.
I'm just.
Totally
I wanna get the.
And a quick shout out to the Splans. Love you forever.
No, not that. Sorry, I just gotta.
You're good.
Just gotta look at some stuff here. This is important to me. I mean, I'm looking at this map, and it's dead fucking Sinna.
No, I agree. Like physically on the map, but are you looking at a?
Yeah, I'm trying to. All right, let's do Hornbrook to Fresno. This is important to me. This is important.
Josh, I had a thought while you were looking.
That's wild.
Someone should
Fresno,
make a Spider-Man
California.
movie.
Someone should make a Spider-Man movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool if we had one.
It'd be really cool. Anyway, Fresno, California.
420 miles away from the Mexican border, 440 miles away from the Washington border.
The Washington?
Or sorry, the Oregon border.
Okay.
Oregon border. Yeah.
I was like, the Washington border, that crazy.
Yeah,
Oregon?
no, that's definitely not centered.
Okay,
yeah.
so not that far off
so it's
from
20
center.
miles off, depending on like
favoring
the towns.
south. Yeah.
If I looked up National City and I looked up Hornbrook. So, like,
yeah, no,
two border towns. Yeah.
Totally fair. Yeah, the only thing that I'm thinking is
which
that's
granted,
very reasonable.
it does make sense that it is farther from the northern border than it is the southern border by like 20 miles. And
because
it is once you're on the freeway for like 20 minutes, that's whenever you see those trees. So that does kind of add up.
Yeah. Totally fair. I just, it appears just ever so slightly more southern, but like barely. I wouldn't.
Also, the last 100 miles of California to the north don't fucking count.
Well, agreed. That's the other thing that I'm saying. Like, I was like, are you saying relative to the cities? Because then it's like,
relative to the cities, I'd say it's more north.
More north, yeah. In most people's estimation,
it's within a walkable amount of. It's within a one marathon. Exactly. The center
exactly.
of
A
the
marathon.
State. So,
right.
Yeah.
Which is very reasonable. Yeah, cool. The suppliants. We then wake with Hadrian surrounded again by unfamiliar voices and faces as he wakes up from his stunner to the back of the neck, although not one that is altogether hostile to him, which is a little bit similar and different from situations that he's been in. He's not afraid for his life. He quickly befriends other people here in this strange waiting room, but is informed by another old man that his friends are certainly safe, as this room to which they wait for Kharn to call upon them is fine.
Yeah, we enter the scariest room of all. One
Purgatory?
full of old people.
Yeah. It
Old,
is kind of
rich, white
purgatory,
people.
though.
I mean, they're not all white, but like per the universe,
That's the idea. Yeah, right.
Yeah,
the same character.
You
class.
woke up in like a hospice in La Jolla, which would only make sense to people who live in California. But like
to people that live in Southern California, specifically. Funny enough, I was talking about La Jolla earlier today, but no, for like 4 people, that makes sense.
Yeah,
yesterday rather.
Terrifying.
Yeah, horrifying place.
La Jolla-fying.
La Jolla-fying for sure. It's interesting. It feels very like purgatory-ish. Next chapter he compares it to Tartarus, which is very obvious in a lot of ways, which is sort of like the Titanomachy hell.
That's him referring to like the TARDIS from Doctor.
Absolutely.
Because this room is bigger on the inside, I'm pretty sure. Yes, TARDIS, Titans.
Yeah, right. No, but it's interesting as Kharn like waits to call upon them, and they're all just okay with being here. Because to be frank, a month or 2 in the spectrum of the lifetimes that these people have lived is not very much. And Kharn Sagara has lived for 15,000 years, as we know at this point. Practically as old as the Empire, although not quite. The Empire was young.
So Kharn, he's pulling people back between each nap.
Yeah, right. He can take a year off. He might lose one, but like, fine. You showed up too late. That's on you.
And also, to be frank, anyways, I start blasting. Sorry.
Yeah. There's another point here where, like, part of me in my head, as I think about this, the Frank I start blasting thing, also a meme in our Discord. We've got it literally as an emoji. But I do think that it's like, is this a holding cell? Not only because he like patience is important to him, and like people waiting, and like the control and power that he has there is important, but also he has to clone them. Is he taking this
Yeah.
time to clone them and make like the clone as specified?
There was a piece of that I was wondering. I was also wondering if like somehow to like maintain the mystery,
Mm-hmm.
like if he's getting their DNA off of these plates that these homunculi are bringing in
Exactly.
and stuff.
Right.
Like,
Like, what's the purpose of all these
sure,
things?
if he brought them back and was like, "Let me scan you, take some blood, we'll start working up a, you know, a business plan here. Or we're gonna do KPIs and aggressive expansion. We're gonna move fast and break things." Like, yeah, they'd just be like, "Oh, okay, sure."
Yeah, right.
But like, if he just magically already has the clone, then that's like super cool. And is that part of what's going on here? As
Yeah,
he's
there's
like
like a mysticism there. Yeah.
collecting like psychological data by watching them, collecting physical
Yeah.
DNA from these plates, like
Choosing whether or not they're worth it, you know?
yeah, which I think is a big part of it, is just like waiting to see if there's someone that he like deems worthy of his time. Um, but also like there might be an aspect of making the people that are maybe slightly too far gone or could be too far gone to actually get like a proper like psychological read and clone wait the longest so that he can see if they're even viable for this, you know? Like I don't know, there's a lot going on that it could be. um but then there's some fucked up stuff towards Hadrian that I'm confused about, which is in a later chapter. But
I think
like,
it's in
why does
Tartarus.
Hadrian have
Yeah.
his own special rules?
Yeah, right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an interesting situation. That said, there are people that immediately glom on to Hadrian and Alexander Marlowe here, including older lords and ladies in the room, but in particular Lord Song of München, of whom Hadrian is kind of trying to determine culturally the origin of the man and sort of what language he speaks, which also I think gives us a point in the story in which we realize that the Empire also does have multiple languages. There is standard, but
Yes.
it's finally confirmed to some degree that like Mandari is fully a part of the Empire. It's not like an external part that was brought in some other languages and areas. So it's an interesting note. But they're questioning why he's seeking an audience, especially considering his heritage. This is what you were saying, where it's like, hey, buddy, why are you here though? You're like 30 and hot.
Yeah, and
We're like
specifically
400
like,
and not, you know?
yeah, you're so 30 and hot. I'm so 400
400
and
and
not.
not. Yeah, right.
I'm out that boom boom pow. Kharn Sagara's rocking my style. You know, like.
Hell yeah.
No, this is interesting too, where like we get to see this kind of like game that's not a game about like guessing at his heritage, even though he's like, yeah, I'm Star Victoria. There's like this like stunning, he's like, he has the look, oh, he looks like this one prince, oh, is that the 84th son of the emperor? And they're like 78th, and he's like, how the fuck do I keep up with that? You know, like there, it's interesting to see like this weird like very classic old person like obsessing over the young person at a family gathering.
Oh,
Like if you've ever
entirely,
had
but it's in a
too
different
many
vibe. Yeah.
great aunts and uncles that you've met once, and then you show up in your 20s and they're like, hi, he looks just like his dad. And they're like, I think he looks more like Thomas. And I'm like, I don't even know who the fuck Thomas is.
Yeah. Who the fuck is
Yeah.
that? Who are you talking about?
Yeah, and just has this whole like, he's not a person. They're just old people talking about him as like an object of lineage. And
Yeah, it is very weird because they're like, oh, he's an element of the Star Victoria. Oh, he's regalty. He's related to his emperor. He's a distant cousin. Oh, wow, he's a part of the constellation, as Christopher says multiple times over these two chapters. Yeah.
Pippin's somewhere over there, and he's like, Star Victoria. I know a Victoria.
I've got a
twice
second
removed
Victoria
on my mother's side.
Yeah, right.
He's right over there. Yeah.
Absolutely right there.
Yeah, so no, but I think you really captured the horror of being stuck with a bunch of old people who view you mostly through your lineage and not actually as a human being in this first section.
It's a terrifying prospect. I mean, by and large.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do want to also
Which
mention,
circle of hell is being stuck at a family gathering where you don't actually know anyone?
that's
But
like,
they all know
okay,
you because they met you as a baby.
probably the 9th, but like definitely the 10th. Like it's the 10th.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the 11th.
Yeah, right. Right. For the record, does hell go the other way? No, you're right. It totally is. It is worse. Hang on.
You
I
turn
was
it up to
thinking-
11.
I was going the other direction.
No, it's
You're
probably
totally
like
right.
the second
I think
layer.
it
Like,
actually
it's not
is
that
right.
bad,
It's not
but,
that
like-
bad. I did mean the second or first, but like now I'm like, maybe it actually is that bad. I don't know. Old
Well,
women gossiping.
I
As you
feel like
mentioned,
it goes like
not that
having
important,
your
but terrifying.
skin seared off by a river of fire.
Mhm.
The relatives thing, and then the rest of them.
Right.
You know?
A quote here that Rockio wrote, which I think is just excellent. Nothing old women do is a game, and it is a profound mistake to believe that one must care about a thing to be a subject to it. And it's like,
Yep.
yeah, this is kind of a serious thing in a lot of other contexts, but right here, not exactly. Because like he's kind of removed from the entire.
Rockio's got to have like an Eastern European or Jewish family that has like doted over him that he doesn't know any of them. That's what's going on here.
Or older grandparents, like similarly.
Yeah, I feel
Totally
like
makes
it's
sense.
worse when it's like your grandparents' sisters. You know,
Right, exactly. Great grand aunts, and you're like, or aunts, and you're like.
Yeah, and you're like,
Hang on.
who the fuck are you?
Although, man, I never want to slander anyone in my family. I've been in so many different houses where they're smoking cigarettes and saying like, "So what do you bring to the table?" And it's just I was like 15 at the time, and I was like, "I run fast." Like, what do you want?
I run fast is fucking wild.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we like that. We like
We like that. That's good. That's good. Thanks, Aunt Lynette. But.
God damn, that reminds me, my first real girlfriend. This is a little bit of a side tangent. It won't take very long, I promise. I remember like her family had a cool house. And it had like kind of a big ass backyard in the country. And I didn't have that. And so I was over there one of the first times I met her family. And I was probably like 14. And I just went back in the backyard and sat on a bench and watched the sunset in this big ass country backyard. Cause like, that's cool. It was cloudy. It looked nice. I watched a good sunset. And both of her parents, like, I didn't know, like, came out and stood behind me and they're like, so you're kind of existential, huh? And I was like, whoa, like, what the fuck? I was watching a sunset and they're like, so you're like one of them sad boys. And I was like, I am literally just doing a very human thing, which is enjoying a view for like 10 minutes while she is doing something else. Like,
in your mind, though, you're running through a Hadrian monologue. You are fully exactly what they're saying.
We find ourselves in a point of time when we realize that lineage and time and space are all aspects in which one person can judge another to determine
Who
their
made
quality.
the wood of this bench? Who composed the work and artifice in which it took to shade down to such
and yet I find myself within a
micrometer?
home that lives off of the artistry of others, but judges the artistry of the one that sits in front of them.
Upon which my
Like,
ass sits. Yes.
And then they
They're
came
like,
out
wow,
and
you're
like,
really sad, huh?
you a sad boy? And I was like, yeah, but not right now. I thought I was
I'm
being
actually
pretty
having
chill.
a good time. Yeah.
I was just like, she had to go to the bathroom or something, and I was looking at sunsets. Like, I thought that's pretty normal.
Kind of cool.
Shit,
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah, right. Right, dude?
Anyways,
they're like, we go to bed at 5 p.m.
they're like, I hope you're ready for sunrise. That's when we start mucking the stalls. No, they weren't even country people at all. Her dad drove trains.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I know a couple of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
But this is one of those moments that kind of reminds me of that, where just someone like shows up, stares at you, and then makes like a decision about like the quality of your person
Who you are.
based on like 5 seconds of
no
knowing.
information whatsoever.
Yeah.
That said, I do want to actually take a moment to step backwards in time with
Like
a little,
like that murdered son's light.
like that murdered son's light. To talk a little bit about the Diogenes anecdote that gets pulled up here about searching for Alexander the Great's father's bones, and Hadrian not understanding the cynic's perspective, right? So like he's saying Diogenes and this is an anecdote from a confrontation that happened supposedly between him and Alexander the Great, which was he was sifting through bones, and Alexander was asking what he's doing, and he said, "Oh, I'm looking for your father's bones," which is a cynic's perspective on the idea of like no bones look any different than other bones. There's no way
Yeah.
really to find the truth in bones as to the value of a human being's life. Like we are all
Yeah,
in
but
the
they
end
all
the same thing.
yeah, looking for your
Yeah.
father's bones, but they look no different than the slaves,
But Hadrian in particular here brings up like a really weird perspective where he's like, but now we've changed. Like you can clearly see the delineation between bones. I can't help but think that Homer would see the difference between our bones because now they're
Blind
so
Homer.
diverged.
Yeah.
Blind Homer would see the difference between our bones. So I'm not sure if this is a status in which I want to say that like Hadrian isn't understanding the reason for Diogenes's perspective, or if it's so much that I'm just not sure on like what argument Hadrian's even trying to strike
I
here
think
to some degree.
I think that I'm giving maybe a bit too much credit to Hadrian in my read
Sure.
on this. And it's only because, and God, I bring him up as a joke so many times, but I am going to bring up Saltus.
Okay. All right. Fair.
And it is not a joke. Ever since Saltus was like, we're both children of the tubes, I feel like
Mhm.
Hadrian has slowly been understanding that more.
I would
and
agree.
I feel like this is
Yeah.
less of a dig on the plebs and more of like a realization or like a kind of self-reflection on the fact that he is a part of humanity that has left humanity. And
Mhm.
like it's almost kind of embracing that idea that like you're right, I used to think of myself as more human and plebeians as less human, but
And I
have
shouldn't
we
be.
left humanity? Am I no longer a part of that? My bones would stand out in this. Am I more like, if you're looking at a pile of bones and there are Palatines and Cielson in there, you could find us. Like, am I
Mhm.
as inhuman as this creature I travel with, or this weird monkey man I met 20 years ago? And I wanted to believe like he was having this reflection of like his own loss of humanity, even as he kind of has like a not so great eugenicsy like idea of like transcending humanity. But
Yeah. Yeah. I think that I align with your ideal here. And I was just kind of lost in this in particular as I was trying to like debate the ideas from either side. Just trying to come up with like where exactly Hadrian's trying to land here. And I think I got lost in the muck of like where and why do the bones matter. Also, Diogenes isn't actually searching for them. It's ironic, but Hadrian suggesting that the search was genuine, which is the other component, as though it might have been genuine. And
which
that's where
to
like,
me doesn't even feel like a
yeah,
loss of media or a shifting of media, but just
right.
a lack of understanding the scene
Comprehension. Yeah.
from Hadrian.
Which could be real, and also like that's a thing that uh Kharn brings up not too long from now with Hadrian twice. So
yeah.
yeah.
God, there's some shit in the last chapter I can't wait to talk
Yeah.
about.
Oh yeah, there's some good shit there. But yeah, this just struck me for whatever reason, bringing
yeah.
up this specific example of like a great historical anecdote and like a classic, like the guy who didn't not like actually invented cynicism, but like was like an example of a key cynic, but also a key
Yeah.
stoic. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, I just feel like it's hard to tell sometimes what is Hadrian and what is Christopher, but this feels distinctly Hadrian.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
It's contradictory in
in
its
this
nature.
weird way where it's just like he feels so intelligent in the moment, but like the anecdote falls flat for those of us that actually know what he's talking about from a
Right.
closer lens than he would have had. And it's a very cool moment. This one stands out to me, probably one of the most like prominent moments whenever I think back at the section that we're reading, which is
Cool.
hard to do whenever and prominent, not necessarily like effective, but prominent. Like it definitely just like that moment lingers, I guess, and
Mhm.
makes you think about it. Um, which is hard to do in a section where we meet Robot Man with 10,000 eyes.
Yeah. In addition to like a weird cast of like elderly characters and other things like that. Like there's like a
Yeah.
whole There's like a whole interesting subsection about like labyrinth chess here.
I was going to bring up labyrinth
Yeah.
chest. Whenever I talk about, sometimes something will happen in the book that I continue thinking about.
Yeah.
And so it makes me miss other shit. I got really, both times I listened, locked in on the mechanics of how the labyrinths would move and like how, and I'm like, do you know what each like lever is going to do with the labyrinths? So like, is that part of the tactics or is it randomized?
I think they
started
do.
Thinking about,
yeah.
I started thinking about how fucking fun labyrinth chess probably is, and I really want to play labyrinth chess. I like chess, so labyrinth chess sounds fucking cool. I'm not good at chess, but I love it.
So Daraja or labyrinth chess isn't elaborated upon that much further in the text so far, but I do want to make a recommendation for a lot of folks. The way that he talks about walls and some of the other elements of this remind me of a game that I've recently learned to play with a friend of mine here locally called Tack, which is based on the game from Name of the Wind, of which I've only run the first third and I haven't even hit Tack yet. But it's effectively like a chess checkers style game where a lot of the game is in the playing also, because there's like clearly a couple of optimized ways to win, but it's very fun, very simple. It's used on a couple of different like gridded boards. You can play it on a lot of like standard things. It's wonderful. Highly recommend looking up a couple of YouTube videos to play and like get the pieces for, because it has been some of the most fun, brain stretching, puzzle solving fun that I've had lately.
Hell yeah.
Very simple. TAK. Tack.
Tack.
Yep.
Highly recommend. Onto the list.
Yeah. Yep. Started playing it about a year ago now, actually. But yeah. Very fun. That said,
are you like a big Kraken fan? That
oh, sorry. Yeah.
Great.
I don't know how many people know this. I am a big Kraken fan. My sister is the reporter for the Seattle Kraken. She's one of the people that interviews the players and talks with them all the time. She does this as her job, as her career. Her name's Piper.
She's also a great pop punk musician, but yeah.
She's wonderful. She makes great music and everything else. Also, this is simply just the best sweater that I own. I mean this very plainly.
I've been staring at it the whole time, and I just had to say something.
Hang on, I'm just gonna fully demo. Like,
god damn,
it's sick. So, it's also so comfy. This is a perfect sweater.
Me and my family are Los Angeles Kings fans.
Yep.
But there is a continuous thing where the Kraken has the best fucking merch.
They do.
It's unfortunate because, like, I'm not switching.
The Mammoths
teams.
are trying, but
I'm not switching teams. But the Kings have good merch. The Kings actually do have some really good shit. But like, every time I see stuff from the Kraken, I'm like, God damn it! Who do you have in that booth designing your shit? Because it's good every time.
Mm-hmm. It's that Jerry Bruckheimer money, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like it's that Pirates of the Caribbean money, as we were mentioning earlier.
Ooh, I look at that sweater and I just hear
we've never been like a matching pajamas or whatever the fuck like white people family. However, we did all get these sweaters and wear them for one family photo as a group, but we changed other aspects of the photo to make it like a Where's Waldo sort of thing, like what's different between these two photos, but we were all wearing these sweaters. That's the whole time. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Yeah. Only other thing I want to say, we were introduced to Yume here. He's kind of neat, kind of interesting. We'll talk more about Yume in the future. So
you, me.
Song is also pretty fun guy, but like doesn't obviously go too much further than this in the moment.
No, yeah, I'm like there's a lot of cool characters in here, but like I don't know how much
they're not crazy.
I can like really spend on them, other than that like they're old and
old
kind
people.
of nice and pleasant to read. Like this is like actually a really fun section to read.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Which is interesting. I think it's the most fun I've ever had reading a purgatory section.
We're held in stasis for most of this. We're not moving, and like it's still interesting somehow.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we do meet Yume, who is described very fun as like perfectly human, fully androgynous, metal, one eye where the left one would be,
with like what is the equivalent of like a mask over half the face.
Yeah, like there's like a filigree painted around the eye that turns into it that is like in a very extravagant way to show a tear.
It reminds
just
me of
a
Expedition
cool,
33. Like, it feels very...
very much so. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Yume walked in and is like, let's spill some ink. You know, so
Damn.
yeah.
Cool.
Ennui.
We'll move into Tartarus then. We open with Hadrian describing the state of the Legion's rules on prisoners, and Hadrian contrasting it unfavorably against his treatment by the Undying, even though it's not that bad. Seemingly portraying him as losing track of everything around him. Finally, Yume, the androgynous android, enters and summons the Baroness of Veradetto to her council with the Lord. Hadrian attempts to intervene, even to get an update on speaking to his friends, of which he is soundly denied the ability to do so, although given the option of leaving here. He's not a captive, truly. He's waiting for an audience.
Hadrian's like, at least when you're a captive of the Empire, they feed you at the same time every day and give you a cot, and then also strap you to a cross and peel your skin away slowly, and then slash, little droplets of
Little marks.
white hot metal all over you before they slice you open for the public to see. But at least I know what I'm gonna eat. Like, he really leaves out half of what the Empire does that we have seen firsthand. You know,
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's painting it with a puritanical view in so many different ways, where it's like, this is my own perspective, and I'm not painting it in any other way. And it's youthful Hadrian, obviously, versus like modern day.
It feels, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. It feels like people who like try and downplay how bad slavery is. Almost.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Or was.
They're like, well, they got housing. You know? I'm like, motherfucker, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Like,
and then the other 16 hours of the day, 18 hours of the day they spent. Yeah.
So in this episode, I don't know if I actually made it in this episode or if it was like a side tangent, but we talk about, I'm from Fresno, California, which is like a very conservative agricultural town.
That's in the Devil's Cut.
Anyways, yeah, I definitely had people in high school try and describe to me how school was worse than slavery, and that's what this feels like. You know, like the guy with the lifted truck with the flags on it trying to tell me how high school is actually more soul crushing than slavery. And I'm like, Hadrian, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like, you're in an optional place. Where
I do think it's worthy to compare it more equitably to like Guantanamo prison, the Guantanamo prison experience versus like a fucking hotel waiting room. Like,
yeah, he's at the DMV and he's like, this is the hog.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Like, where it's like, hang on, if I was waiting and I had a continental breakfast delivered occasionally at a random time, like, it's where I'm like, it's a hotel waiting room, like that's basically where you're in, and you're comparing it to the Hog or Guantanamo Bay or like a number of other like prison systems where it's like, this is not that. He's not trying to make it that. It might feel like that, but that's because you're, in particular, Hadrian, your perspective of time is very warped versus the way that people here are thinking about time and their lives. They're willing to spend a month or two of their very limited experience to like work this out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting. Hadrian spent decades, I mean, not all awake, but decades looking for this place. And then he's like thrown off by being awake for a month and a half.
Right.
In a
not even
slightly uncomfortable situation.
This is 23 days, I think.
Okay.
We learned. Yeah. 23 days.
Granted, like, if you
hours.
actively like really make me think about spending 23 days in a DMV waiting room, yeah, that's hell. But like,
he has books. He can read. He's not like at a loss, you know?
I'm just going to watch Psych one more time and it's fine.
He's playing chess. He learned a new game.
There's like people there to hang out with. Like,
he learned a new game with a dude who wanted to talk to him. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not that bad. I've been to worse summer camps for sure.
Yeah, I've spent. Yeah, entirely. This is totally fine. This is the best waiting room ever. He compares it to Tartarus, which is Titan hell. with the Titanomachy, of which we're going to talk about here in but a moment. But like, motherfucker, like, ugh, what?
Yeah.
I do want to mention, though, within the books that he's reading, he does mention the author of the book of the History of Jod and New Wars being named Impatient. And what a clever idea to name like historical writers or other people after like simple things like flowers, like words that already exist, because there's so many that feel good that way. Like impatient doesn't exist, but impatiens are like a common flower, and that's a great feeling name. What a clever
be
move.
absolutely real after like again from the listening not reading side. Impatient
Mm-hmm.
I thought was like a name that I used like in a weird way to make me realize that Hadrian's being impatient.
I think that is also what he's trying to do here, but
yeah,
like
okay.
that's like a confluence of things, not necessarily
Yeah.
like I was speaking about the general world building, but also that is a general world building thing.
I also just don't think I know that much about flowers.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of that like, oh, the emperor has two cats. Like it's not saying, hey, this is a direct thing, but it's like to kind of work your mind that way.
Adjacent,
in my mind.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. So Hadrian is left on his own to contemplate the mythology of Kharn Sagara as it compares to Apollo, the Apollo mission with the moon, Genghis Khan, Siddhartha, and more. Even then, his image that he saw projected from the quiet and how Jari could have possibly known. There's so much that's going on in his mind as to like how mythology and reality interacts. What'd you make of this sort of like moment, this confluence of Hadrian?
Yeah. That's a good question.
Because he's really trying to like find out, like he's trying to suss out this idea of like what is real and what isn't, especially from history. And so he's like digging in. He's thinking about like, well, like Apollo and the moon seems like this distant thing, and like Kharn Sagara now is I'm being painted as real, but Genghis Khan, Siddhartha, those are like disproved by the chantry in some way. But now I have Kharn Sagara in front of me. Like, what do I do with that? What do I do with that when I also know that the quiet exists, in the spectrum of things?
Yeah.
So
it's an interesting section. I wish I locked in more. I don't know. I actually didn't like whenever I'm like thinking about this chapter, this section, like
sure.
This is just him being like, Khan's not real, is he? Oh, maybe he is. Like, I didn't read that much deeper into it than that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm disappointing
No,
you.
super fair.
You look mad.
I'm gonna give you the section just so you can maybe think about it for a second. Just because I'm not gonna place this on you. There's no hate. But and that place, that whited city, its haunted guards, the Undying's pet machine, and the Undying himself, Kharn Sagara. It wasn't possible. It couldn't be. He was a myth, a fairy story, as surely as were Apollo and the moon, as Genghis Khan and the Cid Arthur. I knew his story, had told it to Kat 100 times in Borisivo. If any of it were true, he would be old almost as the Empire. It could not be. And yet, the quiet, too, had been a fairy story. Whispers of ancient aliens told by serfs and spacers alike. None too well believed. I had not believed, not until Volca showed me better.
Yeah. I'll be real, like, whenever reading it, I didn't read much farther than, like, it can't be Kharn Sagara, but the quiet exists. And I really honed in on that, And then, but now that you say that, it's interesting that he's like, Apollo and the moon, that's a myth. I'm like, that's a misunderstanding of the Apollo and the moon landing. Right. And then Genghis Khan, that's not real. And I'm like, kind of. I don't know the version you have. Even the version we have is probably half fake, but
kind of messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
100 Wives doesn't seem real, but maybe, I guess.
I mean, for Genghis Khan, I feel like that's a downplay.
Which is crazy because, the genes are traced back crazy far. And
yeah, because I was going to say, if we look at the genes, reach
that far, which is crazy.
If we look at the genes and how Genghis Khan affected the overall height of East Asia,
it seems like he did be fucking,
wives.
But unfortunately, I don't want to be the arbiter of that truth.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he says, just following this, just to put this into the perspective of Jari, which is the bridge, I think, between the myth and reality and like his question. In the next line, he says, perhaps that's why That was why I dwelt upon Jari in my vision. The rational foundations of my universe were blown out from under me, and I twisted in a fell wind. As when I'd first learned of the quiet, this revelation about Vargosos, its ruler, had shaken me, left me without a box with which to frame my universe.
Yeah. It is an interesting like kind of like pull between the quiet and Kharn Sagara.
Naturally.
But
Yeah.
also like Hadrian, you're the one who traditionally loves to say we're off the map now, here there be monsters. Stop being so
Right.
surprised by the monsters.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
But yeah, no, I mean like this chapter for me is a very interesting look at like Hadrian crashing out a little bit by his worldview being changed because like at the end of the day, like our minds try and keep things in the space we understand them. It's why like
Boxes.
cognitive
Yeah.
dissonance hurts. Um, and this is one of those moments where he's like experiencing undeniable, you can't look away from it, cognitive dissonance. You know, he's like, that's a fairy story, but is
Right.
it? But fucking is it? And so it's like I read this chapter much more in a I'm interested in seeing how Hadrian's like reacting as he kind of falls apart rather than like diving too much into the specifics of what he's talking about, which like I probably should. But for me, it was just like very interesting to see him like coming undone a little bit.
Absolutely. And that's only furthered for the record when the Countess of Somewhere, which is how he remembers her, which is crazy. I love that
Yeah.
idea. Talks about actually reading and the idea that he's sitting there reading impatience and everything else. And they
There's
have this
a really interesting quote in the spot that I want to talk about, but keep going. Sorry.
they have this like brief conversation that supposes that maybe more of the empire is more of aware of the existence of things like the quiet or this like sort of specious idea that has been treated like treason to him and to everyone else than like the chantry would like to be treated, which is interesting. So there's an interesting subnote here, which I'd mentioned a little bit earlier, but
There's also just with the Countess somewhere talking about the reading. There's
Mhm.
something that like really stood out to me. And that was whenever she's like, it's so nice to see young people reading again.
Of course.
Whenever
yes.
he's on his hollow tablet,
Mhm.
he's doing his iPad kid time. She's like, thank God I can see people actually reading the real way on a tablet. Because whenever you see the kids read these days, they're all
They're
reading
those
printed books.
fake fucking books, and I don't believe that they're reading. Yeah.
Yeah, they just want to be seen reading. But paper? Come on. Read a real book on a holograph, you know?
It's such a clever insert from Rockio to be like, reading is reading from every perspective. Like,
Yeah.
who gives a shit? Right.
And there's also that aspect where like I want to give some credence to her, and it's almost
Yeah.
like that idea of like, oh, like
Ownership
maybe,
is not like reading. You know what I mean? Like you
yeah.
buy a bunch of books, that's not reading.
I want to give
is a part of
her like the
perspective.
idea of like somebody who listens to music for the love of music, but or versus someone that likes to collect vinyl. I do both.
Right.
But like
Same.
this idea of like, oh, like it's so nice to see someone who just like likes music versus someone who just wants to have the vinyl to look cool. I could understand that a little bit. I like to have the vinyl to look cool. I also like music. So either way, it's kind of like a moot fucking argument, but like I had to kind of shift it. I'd be like, what is like the equivalent of how they probably view paper books at this point to us today?
It's artifice. It's like totally a showy thing, you know.
Yeah,
Right.
but like everything I could think of, I was like, I mean, I like a pour over coffee.
Right. I'd make pour over every morning, but like
yeah, so like maybe she's
it's
just
a
mad at me
showy
for
thing,
being an
maybe.
insufferable
Yeah.
little fucking hipster. I don't know.
but I do think there's something to be said about like, hang on, you need someone to produce your book like physically for you versus like if they can all be digitally available at all times, like what are you doing? And I get
Yeah.
that. I get that if that becomes the proliferation of culture so far in the future, where it becomes like the physical thing is totally
There's also an interesting line from way back
collector
earlier
line.
in like one of the first chapters, I feel like.
Yeah.
Where Hadrian is like, oh, and I started reading all about these things. I think it's whenever like before Hadrian goes into March Station, whenever they're kind of like waiting, and he's like, yeah, all of this information was readily available on my like Hollow if you could foot the bill. So this is such a conversation amongst people who like don't understand that you still have to pay for all of these books, but
Very
money
fair.
doesn't make sense to her or him. And he's like, yeah, I just be reading all the time. But he's paying for every single one of these books, like from that thing that he mentioned earlier in my mind, like
It also is. I think it's within this chapter. Actually, is when that's mentioned. So it's like earlier, but it's within these two chapters.
okay, yeah.
Where it's like he's paying for this. But the thing that I would layer on here, just to like clarify her point versus our point that we're talking about, is she's suggesting that people buy the physicals because they just want to have them,
Yeah. I
which
bought
I
vinyls
am
for that reason.
I've fully done with a whole book series on this top shelf here that I mostly listened to until recently. I've been rereading, and I've read the back half of the series.
I
So
feel like
like,
the difference is a book that you listened to and you're like, I want the physical is one thing, but a book that you bought that you've never listened to or didn't read,
right, yeah,
like that's the
like
difference.
I don't know, fucking All the King's Men right there. Just kidding, I've read it, but
Oh, are we talking about my history of Superman? Leatherbound.
You can't quite see that in frame, but that's hilarious. I love it.
I didn't buy it. A friend was
gifted.
moving and was like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "Don't throw it away."
Yeah, totally fair. Totally fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. It's an interesting conversation, though. So, Hadrian is finally faced with the reality of what they are here for when discussing with this Countess of Nowhere Nothing, of the nature of the fact that these people are cloned and that they're going to be put into those bodies, those brains, those minds, everything that else that exists within those spectrums. What'd you make of that sort of reveal reality?
I feel like it was something that I don't know in a weird way where it's not necessarily like I was like I know that this is what's going on. Whenever it was real, I was like, yeah, that is what I thought was going on.
Makes sense. Yeah, you're like,
but it's really interesting to see it through Hadrian's perspective, where that is as much. It's one of the 13 abominations or 12 abominations.
One of the late editions. I think it's 11,
which I want to talk
12.
about that.
Yeah.
I love that like cloning is as demonic as androids or AI or
but also only added specifically because it was a problem for succession.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It is a late addition as a problem because people were cheating succession laws. Like it is such
that is bureaucratic.
Without diving too much, this has happened in major religions in our world where you just add a sin because financially it makes sense for the country that is dominant within that religion.
Or you add a tithe, or you add like a region of time that imparts something.
Oh.
I mean, Lent. Did you miss something?
Sorry, Are You Still Here popped up for me.
Okay. Yeah. cut.
But yeah, it was I love this section where like it's especially knowing now from like reading The Lesser Devil and talking to you about that like Rocchio is Catholic, right? Is that correct?
He is in the middle, for the record, within this book and within writing The Lesser Devil, coming back to being Catholic. He was Catholic. He separated because the secular faith and the way that they were like treating other people when he was in college was actually really repugnant, and he didn't agree with the idea. So he separated from the faith. Yeah. Then he came back to it in post for other reasons.
It's like this thing where I can kind of appreciate someone who's a part of a religion, but that can like see the moments that you don't write this without knowing that this has happened within Catholicism and Christianity.
Of course.
Yeah. And so it's such like a nice way to see like kind of how he views maybe Catholicism. Even at this point, he's gone in a different direction from there. It's like this idea of like understanding how religion, politics, and history play this circular
interactive role
wheel. Exactly. And that what does that mean? There's no truth within it. I don't I'm not going to tell you. That's for you to go find out for yourself, kid. But
yeah, right. Also, not something that I think like is something that we can fully comment on, right? Like, there's not
exactly. Yeah. I personally, I think I've talked about this. Have my own thoughts on religion and modern religion, and especially evangelical Christianity. But at the end of the day, like the one thing I really dislike is somebody who tells somebody else that they have all the answers. If you're finding truth somewhere, that's awesome. As long as it's not hurting nobody else. But like, so that's
Right.
that's one of those things
Yeah.
where like in this, it's like the Chantry is adding these political moments to take what, even if we know it's kind of a twisted, inherently political religion, they're adding things on that almost like dilute the purity of the religion itself for financial and economic and political gain in certain situations. And it's I really honed in on that specific section where
It's
it's like a late
intentionally
edition.
gross. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Very clearly with the cloning thing. Although there are other reasons to like despise cloning potentially from a religious perspective, but like specifically for the nature of like inheritance, it's like, oh, hang on. So we actually don't care
Yeah.
about like the inherent nature.
There's
of,
no
like
like
the
question about
soul.
whether or not
Yeah.
cloning has a problem with the soul. Does it split the soul, or do the clones
Right.
soulless? Like, what is the soul? It's like, hey, no, too many people were making too much money off of this.
Right.
Without
They
us
could just keep
getting
being
our
the people
cut.
in charge. We fucking
Yeah.
hate that.
We can't charge inheritance tax if they keep
Right.
inheriting it to the back to themselves because it's not a new person. And now,
Yeah. Now we hate that. We hate that.
well, we hate that shit. Exactly.
Okay, so I do want to mention there's only like one final note that I have here, which is obviously something that leads into a very cool scene. There's a lot to talk about here, so I want to take these in sort of two pieces. Let's talk about the scene that happens in the future with the Emperor William, of whom
Yeah.
we know, in the Perenine Palace. And then we're going to talk about the history and all the other things that they talk about after the fact. So I'm going to mention this. We'll talk about the future Hadrian. Then I'm gonna fill in all the backfill. We'll talk about that shit. Does that make sense?
For some reason, I didn't actually catch the emperor's name. The emperor is.
We know that William is the emperor from other details. I think it's William the 13th.
Slightly side thing. What is Switch's real name?
William as well. He's named after the emperor.
Yeah,
He's
I was gonna say
specifically
that's
named after
crazy.
the emperor.
Yeah,
yeah.
I probably heard that at one point, but damn.
Yeah.
You think Switch is the emperor?
Could he be?
I'm definitely not taking that bet. It's like a Knight's Tale situation where he's like, "You knew me, but still you rode."
Yeah, but still you rode.
Yeah. All right. Yeah.
So that said, a very fun scene here that happens. Where we cut to this like seemingly future scene where the emperor is in this Perenine palace, which Perenine, by the way, is the compound for morphine, or like a morphine adjacent opioid that my brother may be aware of. When I was writing this, he was like, "Did you know it's an opioid?" And I was like, "No, but thank you." So, I don't know that Christopher did either, but it's interesting. Looking out over Goya's Pinturas Negras, which I'll talk about more, containing 9 of the 14 works that were originally recovered from the walls of his final home.
Gotcha, yeah.
We talk, of course, specifically about Saturn eating his own son, which is one of those that the Emperor is also making mention of here, which is the most notable of those paintings that most people naturally know and would recall of the 14 works, which, to begin with, I didn't know were grouped. But there's so much more there to discuss. What do you make of this sort of like future pressed scene pushed backwards? What's sort of your thought here?
This was one of those scenes where everything he was mentioning, like he'd mention Saturn and his son, and I'd be like, I think I know about this, but then he mentioned some other shit and be like, I don't know about this, and then
do you know
like,
the painting? Do you know the painting in question?
I'm pretty sure, but
okay,
let's look it up.
I'm gonna send it to you. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, send it to me.
Yeah.
Wait, don't accidentally see nothing I'm not supposed to.
Ooh.
But yeah, if I'm not mistaken,
you know this. I mean, it's so quintessential, I think, in like general artistry. Like, I'd be hard pressed not think that you're aware. I want to say it's probably in like the top 25 most recognized pieces of art.
The fact that like I'm pretty sure whenever that was being spoken on, I was like, I like could picture it in my head, but we're gonna look at this painting and see if it's what I pictured, and if it is, then like fuck yeah. I took a lot of art history classes. I just don't remember half of them. Okay,
Totally
yeah,
fair.
obviously. That's
Yeah,
like
right.
the entire inspiration of Attack on Titan.
Right. Right.
Yeah. No, yeah, 100%. I actually think this image might be explicitly used in one of the intros of Attack on Titan. But
Oh yeah, basically it's simulating the idea. Yeah.
yes, I have definitely seen this painting, obviously. As have we all. It's gruesome though.
Definitely. No doubt.
Okay, never I was gonna say, like, I almost feel like I saw it in person whenever I was in Italy,
It's
but it
so
is in
tough to have
Spain.
seen any of
It's
the
in
Goyas.
Spain.
Yeah, the Pinturas Negras are so hard to see, in part because and I'll get, I guess, into the like art history part of this lesson. So Goya, Francisco Goya, when he was retiring and or like dying, he started to realize he felt like he was going crazy at the end of his life. And
From his
so
paintings,
he,
I would never guess that.
well, what's interesting, there's some debate over this, but it's fascinating. He basically reserved himself into a house that he bought, a piece of land, and then painted murals on the walls, which are the 14 Pintas Negras, which are these final paintings that he drew over the walls over the course of a 2-story house. People debate whether or not the first story and the second story were built around the same time. There's an argument, was it his son that painted the paintings? Because it does seem distinct in style and not that different, but maybe different enough. Could this be an old man at the end of his line, or could it be someone else of
Right.
whom knew enough to impersonate? Those are questions to exist for historians to figure out over the long run. Most people persist in the fact that it is actually Francisco Goya for the most part, with maybe a couple of exceptions. So, all that said, uh, it's very interesting to see these photos, to know so much survives. And also, the way that they survive is they were scraped off the fucking walls, basically, and transferred to paintings. So, the only reason that we have Saturn and his sun is because it was poorly transferred in the 1870s, because they're like, we have to save this piece of art. Can you imagine
That's fucking wild. Yeah.
that long ago trying to save a piece of art without the technology that we have today, like in the idea of like what we would do today?
I
And
feel
we
like the
still
common
have
go-to back
these?
then was just like, guys, I got this. Bring me my
And that's
crayon.
basically what they did. There's
But yeah.
holes in some of these paintings, or like distinct like shine through spots in other ways that are just strictly the fact that this was a crude reclamation process to like process it from A to B. So the Pinturas Negras are fascinating for many reasons, um, including like their history, their origination, but also like recovery and everything else that
Are
it
you
goes
telling me we
involved with
didn't
them.
have LiDAR in the 1860s?
But then also that Kharn Sagara has 9 of them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
fucking
bitch.
guy has 9 of the 14, and I'm sure he's mostly missing the boring ones. You know?
He's definitely got this one.
Oh, he obviously has Saturn eating his son.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fucking
Which
so interesting.
I've been like reserving talking about the last chapter a lot, but
Oh, I do want to just real quickly make mention. Saturn, Cronus, obviously like the father of most of the pantheon, was the guy who, of course, as a part of the Titanomachy, was trying to preserve the hierarchy of power at the time, giving the Titans the power versus the gods. Titans are technically higher than gods, but because the gods yada yada fought back, we think of gods in a capital G way in the Christian sense, where it's like, we're all
right, no,
supreme,
but
but like Titans were like more foundational, yada yada. So
like in this most simple sense in
yeah,
my mind,
right.
I always just think that Titans lean. Well, it's inspired by. So, but just for the framing of my mind, like Titans are Eternals, and the gods are like Thor. You know, Like,
Right. Yeah, in a Marvel context, for sure. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, like. And that's why I'm like, hey, yeah, obviously this is just inspired by Greek mythology or mythology in general. But it helps me define it where I'm like Titans, formative essence of the universe.
Beings, yeah.
Yeah, gods, funny little guys with magic.
But the reality, yes, the reality is though is that there were like 4 beings in like Greek and Roman mythology. There were like 3 to 4 beings that predated them, that gave birth to the Titans, that were then the foundation of the universe in so many ways. And then the Titans birth children and were beaten by their children and forced to split their domains. So it's like they gave up the domains more than they gave up, like,
Interesting.
some essence, some singular thing. And that's the Titanomachy that I was mentioning earlier. Like that's the war, basically.
And if Denzel Washington ever taught me anything, got to remember the Titans.
Remember those fucking Titans. Also, within Gladiator 2, he would also say, remember the Titans. Come on.
Yeah, both of them.
Snap twice. Yeah.
Denny, what's up? All
Denny!
right, so
anyway, that was
Denny,
a lot of
text
like
me
art
back.
history into like mythology, into
Yes.
yeah, just to make sure
but
that like,
very good shit that I like.
very cool,
I
but
also,
also
like,
something you could totally miss within
it
the
is
spectrum
so
of this book.
upsetting when my D&D brain mixes with my like art history brain. I'm like,
Yeah.
Kronos, it's the deity of time in D&D, but like not in
Not
this
Saturn,
situation.
yeah. Yeah, it's weird too to me because in particular when I was reading through this the first time I was like, oh, like what's the relevance of like Saturn within this? And then we get into the next chapter, which is Saturn or Dis. And this also makes me extra question the idea of like if you're actually paying attention, how much are we supposed to pay attention? Because I think I can
Yeah.
tear this apart because I paid too much attention.
Like Saturn or Dis, I'm like, those are two different mythologies.
We were talking about two very different things. So we just talked about Saturn, as you mentioned.
And now we're jumping into hell layers.
We're talking about the city of Dis, which is totally out of the Inferno, Dante's Inferno, predominantly the final 3 layers of hell, which is 6 through 9, like we mentioned earlier. The lowest layers. It's interesting to me to pose this as the chapter heading as a comparison between Saturn or Kronos and the city of Dante's hell, as though those were like optional choices, as though we aren't being confronted with both simultaneously, which is like it's Saturn
really does
and Dis.
It feels like someone came up to me as they were about to seat me at a restaurant, and they're like, "Chair or steak?" And I'm like, both, ideally, actually, like neither at the same time. I would like those to be on opposite ends of me. They shouldn't be related in this conversation. You could ask me steak or fish, chair or booth.
Right.
But you asked me chair or steak, and now I have to think about what that means for the restaurant I've just walked into.
Which is sort of where, exactly, that's where I'm struck with this chapter. I'm like, I really don't know what he's intending with the naming here. Is though, like, is he saying, like, Dis referring to Lucifer at the bottom of hell and comparing that to Saturn, like eating the children or otherwise? But I don't think so. I don't think that's what he's implying. He's not implying the 9th circle, but
I think it was just a typo. There's supposed to be an or dat. So Saturn or Dis or dat.
You're so fired. But
yeah, I'll go.
Yeah, I don't know.
Get the fuck out of here.
He hits both. He hits both here, and that's kind of troubling.
Let's fucking get into
the character perspective. So yeah, we'll get into it. Yume leads Hadrian away, of whom he calls his own personal Virgil, of which I already mentioned. We've coming back to Dante a lot this week, as he approaches an epic door with a young boy atop shattered ruins of monsters to take a tram to the pyramid in which Kharn resides. Hadrian describes it as a tomb, no speaking, no sound, all shadow. In the room itself, we find a massive tangle of cords with a plinth underneath, a sort of quasi-throne with these cables of cords and pipes leading into this man, as Hadrian himself faces up, looking down from bowing to the undying Kharn Sagara himself.
It's so hard to like hit the end of this section where we talk about Kharn Sagara himself and not just like start fucking time. Oh, let's talk about Kharn Sagara. There's a lack of description whenever we get to Kharn Sagara in the floating eye camera things. We know they're leaf shaped, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
I have a headcanon that maybe is dismissed later based on what we learn, but to me, fucking matters. Every single one of these eyes in my brain can swap out and fit into Yume or any other one of the androids. That left eye, I think, is just an attachment. that any of these eyes could be, and I want to believe that each one has gold filigree that is a different shape
Plug in.
or
Yeah.
yeah. There's no reason for that, other than that just it feels fucking cool in my brain. But I just like the idea that there's all these cameras that are just kind of these like leaves that are drifting around, but like any of them could be anybody that Hadrian is.
I don't mean to sound like an asshole here when I suggest this, but I do want to say, in my opinion, it evokes to me the tree of knowledge that he talks about later. And each of the eyes is a leaf because it's an eye on the tree. He's seeing more, he's knowing more innately because he's out and about, he's
That
flying
definitely
around.
makes sense.
Yeah. It feels like a weird like manifestation of an idea that's
Yeah.
more metaphysical, you know?
There's also like this intense question I think that like is left lingering here of like Kharn Sagara is presumed dead when he sees him for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
He's not moving, he's not breathing, he's not
just
really
there.
existing.
Yeah.
He's just there. And then he comes back to life and all of these things are there. Based on all the other things that we've like kind of learned about this technology and about cloning and about AI in this world and the Americani, demoniacs. I'm like, is Karn 15,000 years old? Or is there a program still running Karn that is lifting his body up and down? It's so hard to tell, you know?
Valid questions across the gamut. Yeah.
Yeah. Karn is one of the wildest like sci-fi characters I've ever been introduced to.
Ever. Dude, I've read so
He's
much
up
sci-fi.
there with, and again, I'll just say this out loud. I haven't read the Dune books, don't at me, but like he's up there with Leto too. You know? Like,
right? I mean, like he
Big
is,
Worm Boy or Karn Sagara, dude.
Kharn is crazy. He's so unique. He's so interesting. It's such like a thing that's just so fascinating in so many different ways because it's like, hang on, how did you do this? Why did you do this? In what spectrum of like, what is humanity to you anymore? Like, what's your distance from you to the next person? And we get that explored through the text here within the next couple of chapters or the next couple of conversations. But we don't actually get like a full answer either. Like in the immediate moment where it's like, I don't know who the fuck you are right now. And it's curious and it's mysterious. And man, this is the hook that set in my heart for this series. Was like, I'm going to love this. Like the first book, I was like, I'm enjoying this. It's a good time. Second book, I'm like, this is for fucking me. Like this is
I feel like I'm in a very similar space on that.
Right. Like it's
I also have like questions that I
of course
can't get answers to based on how you chose how to break the section up. Because the last two chapters in this section, I'm like, that feels like a weird place to end this.
I mean,
because ending at the end
from
of
behind was like a fun, you know.
It is,
but also like if it weren't for like the nature of this book and the way that I thought that we could pace it versus the way that we actually did, I would have broken this up a little bit different. I would have probably ended here and then done the next couple of chapters.
This feels like such a section ender.
It is such a section ender, no doubt. But also, you can't disagree that the choking is also like a good section.
It's pretty fucking cool
because you got no idea where we're going. But
no, none.
If the way that we've actually recorded the show, I'd rather end here. But the way that like I had originally slated it, I think that where I chose.
It's still fun. It makes sense, but it's just like wild to finish this chapter and be like 2 more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. But they're interesting.
They're very good chapters.
You're not left without context.
There's a plot chapter and a thought chapter.
Right. Which I think is like with Hadrian, you kind of want a good mix. So
yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I do want to mention our poem as Hadrian looks upon Kharn is one of the first of 2 poems that remains unfinished by Keats, of whom I've also already talked about a little bit this evening, who tried to write his way through the story of the Titanomachy, of which I've already talked about a little bit, or which is also referred to as the Fall of the Titans. We briefly spoke about this just a moment ago. He is sort of equating Kharn to Saturn here, which is also the opening of the poem, and it's an epic introduction to Kharn to give you those lines again here. Deep in the shady sadness of a veil, forsunken from the healthy breath of morn, Far from the fiery noon, and on eve's one star, sat gray-haired Saturn, quiet as a stone. And this is Kharn sitting there locked in position before he awakens. And this leads Hadrian into the room because he doesn't move, he doesn't change. So I think that this equates Kharn immediately to Saturn, to this old god, to this thing that is foreign from a fallen dynasty in so many different ways. And paints him in this picture, especially using Keats as the weapon. Yeah, curious.
I was really enjoying you telling me about that. I don't know what I
Oh,
can
sure,
add.
sure. No,
to
yeah.
that.
I guess I was just trying to like add the context of like
No, the context is fucking rad, and I love
Yeah.
hearing it. And you're like, your thoughts. I'm like, my thoughts are, fuck,
Sick.
yeah, dude. That's a whole lot of context I didn't have.
No, it's just interesting, especially as we compare the ideas. Like, hang on, let's think about this old Greek mythology and also the basis of that mythology, which is the Titanomachy. And then let's shift it forward, and it's like Kharn is Saturn, the like critical of the gods, the one who ate his own children, and like the one of whom was also trying to preserve his race in quotes of Titans by consuming Zeus, Hades, and the like. Apollo, sorry, not Apollo, but yeah,
Yeah, well, Apollo and the moon, you know.
different, yeah.
No, it's very cool. It is one of those moments where, like, sometimes whenever I'm reading this book, there's those moments where I'm like, I can't wait for Cross to tell me what this means.
Aw, that's kind of sweet, yeah. But Hadrian tells you within the next line.
Yes.
He says, "Thus he seems to me in memory, king of the Titans, in all his ruinous glory, couched in numb contemplation of the dark. How long he'd seemed seated in that awful chair, I could not imagine, nor imagine the well and depth of the years in his experience."
I was really enjoying you telling me about that. I don't know what I
Oh,
can
sure,
add.
sure. No,
to
yeah.
that.
I guess I was just trying to like add the context of like
No, the context is fucking rad, and I love
Yeah.
hearing it. And you're like, your thoughts. I'm like, my thoughts are, fuck,
Sick.
yeah, dude. That's a whole lot of context I didn't have.
No, it's just interesting, especially as we compare the ideas. Like, hang on, let's think about this old Greek mythology and also the basis of that mythology, which is the Titanomachy. And then let's shift it forward, and it's like Kharn is Saturn, the like critical of the gods, the one who ate his own children, and like the one of whom was also trying to preserve his race in quotes of Titans by consuming Zeus, Hades, and the like. Apollo, sorry, not Apollo, but yeah,
Yeah, well, Apollo and the moon, you know.
different, yeah.
No, it's very cool. It is one of those moments where, like, sometimes whenever I'm reading this book, there's those moments where I'm like, I can't wait for Cross to tell me what this means.
Aw, that's kind of sweet, yeah. But Hadrian tells you within the next line.
Yes.
He says, "Thus he seems to me in memory, king of the Titans, in all his ruinous glory, couched in numb contemplation of the dark. How long he'd seemed seated in that awful chair, I could not imagine, nor imagine the well and depth of the years in his experience." So, like, he's giving you a little bit of that, but like, I do want to mention Keats failed twice to like try to make this story make sense in the poetic context that he wanted to. So there's both Hyperion, which is the name of this poem in the entry point here,